as it branches off to a number of roads, comes all the way from Uhuru Highway, still goes through Uhuru Highway, branches off to Upper Hill, as well as coming from the city center. So ultimately that makes it one of those busy roundabouts. And as of now, a couple of minutes just past the top of the hour, that's a couple of minutes past 7 a.m. and you can see how the roundabout is looking like. In fact, traffic throughout the entire roundabout. But I just mentioned to you that it's one of those busy roundabouts as it branches off to a number of roads, even major highways such as Uhuru Highway. So this is the reason as to why we'd also experience heavy traffic gridlock, just like what you're seeing right now. But even at that, in as much as yes, there's traffic, at least it's quite manageable. Remember that it's just a couple of minutes past 7 a.m. So if this is how it's looking like in this early morning hour, you can imagine how the situation would look like probably from 9, 10. It would be a whole different story. But around this roundabout coming all the way from Mombasa Road, and also it's one of those roundabouts that serves both vehicles. This is both public vehicles, private vehicles, as well as motorcycles. Again, that is just one of the reasons as to why there's normally heavy traffic build-up. But even at that, it's one of those roundabouts also where the kind of small-scale business traders are just normally around, the roundabout, and even on the side of the road, we have the large-scale business. There's large-scale commercial centers just along this avenue. This is also the reason as to why there's normally heavy traffic gridlock, and also the reason as to why we are seeing, or better still, spotting traffic in this early morning hour. Traffic throughout the entire roundabout as of now. But even at that, it's one of those avenues or even roundabouts where traffic police are normally stationed very early, up and bright, to just try and see how best they can control traffic and and so obviously again this is probably one of the reasons as to why, at least in as much as yes there's traffic, it is quite manageable. But as you leave the roundabout coming from Uhuru Highway, because as I mentioned to you, it is one of those roundabouts that comes from Uhuru Highway, goes all the way to Uhuru Highway, all the way to Mombasa Road, branches off to the city center. So as you leave the roundabout, this is just along Uhuru Highway. This actually is on that road, or better still, that lane that is coming all the way from Mombasa Road. Traffic, in fact, at a standstill just as you just as you come to the roundabout. And this is on that lane, specifically the lane that is leaving Mombasa Road, coming all the way through the different roundabouts along Uhuru Highway as you come to Haile Selassie roundabout. In fact, on this specific lane, traffic is just at a standstill. This is what that color indicates there. On the other lane, you can see a different color just from what you're seeing on your screens. These are two different colors. On the other lane, there's no traffic at all, and that is what that green color indicates. That is just as you leave the Haile Selassie Avenue roundabout, coming through Uhuru Highway, going all the way to Mombasa Road. On that lane, it's quite manageable. But as I mentioned to you, this is one of those busy roundabouts, and again, just look at it, traffic has changed. Remember in the past couple of minutes when you were beginning to look at the roundabout, it was orange all through, an indicator that yes, traffic has begun building up, but it's moving at a pretty fast pace. Now things have totally changed. In fact, on some parts around the roundabout, it's just now traffic moving pretty slowly, and clearly this is what these different colors just show. The red indicates that traffic is there but moving at a pretty slow pace, and this has just changed like in a minute in a minute or 2 minutes thereabout, because it wasn't like this when we were beginning to look at how traffic was doing like around the roundabout. But also it branches off as you head all the way to Upper Hill, Kenyatta, going to estates such as Mgumo thereabout. So again, this makes it one of those busy roundabouts, especially in the early morning hour. So again, also remember that there was a reconstruction process going on along that road. I'll be showing you images of that probably in the next link up segment to show you how the images of that reconstruction process to make that road a dual carriage road. Also, they have ensured that they put up designated lanes. This is along Upper Hill area to just reduce on the traffic build up along that route. But coming back to matters, traffic moving at a pretty fast pace, especially on the lane that is leaving Mombasa, the lane that is leaving the roundabout as you head to Mombasa Road. On the other lane, traffic just moving pretty slowly, and in some other parts, just traffic at a standstill. So that's that in terms of traffic this morning around Haile Selassie Avenue. Probably in the next link-up segment, we'll try to look at some alternative routes, especially for those who use this roundabout as you go about your businesses around the city center. Up next, our segment in the headlines.
a look at what's happening in our different dailies, the Standard newspaper, the Daily Nation, the People's Daily, and the Star, the newspapers that we have right here in studio to keep you updated in what's happening both locally and internationally. Now, let me start with the Standard newspaper. On the front page, at the top, we have CJ to Uhuru. He says, you are out of order. That is the Chief Justice David Maraga speaking to the President Uhuru Kenyatta. Remember, he spoke about this yesterday. Regina had highlighted about this at the beginning of the show. Judiciary under siege. In her hard-hitting address, Chief Justice declares that President is out of order for disobeying court orders on appointment of judges and failing to rein in executive to respect the rights to Kenyans, the rights of Kenyans. The CJ says you are out of order. That is the Chief Justice David Maraga. Now, to open the page, to get to look at this story, you are out of order. Furious Maraga tells Uhuru. The CJ follows his dismissal of executive order with a stinging rebuke of the president. Now, for the umpteenth time, the Chief Justice, David Maraga, descended on President Uhuru Kenyatta, accusing him of a litany of things, among them failure to appoint 41 judges and continued defiance of court order. Now, in a bare-knuckle address to the nation yesterday, Maraga declared that the president is out of order for disobeying 2 court orders on appointment of 41 judges and failure to rein in his executive, which continues to violate the rights of thousands of people. Grievances given there, including disobeying 2 court orders that directed the president to appoint and swear in 41 judges within 14 days, and among them also the president's disregard of court orders does not bode well for constitutional democracy. That is something that is a recipe for anarchy. The Chief Justice terms it as a mockery for the government to demand that citizens obey its laws when it disobeys court orders. You are out of order, sir. Furious Maraga tells Uhuru.
Between the issues between the 2 arms of government. And on the front page, the caption just reads that CJ takes battle to Uhuru's doorstep. There's also an image pictured in there of the Chief Justice, that is David Maraga. Continues to say that Maraga accuses head of state of violating the constitution and frustrating administration of justice by refusing to appoint 41 judges approved by Judicial Service Commission in the latest tiff between the 2 leaders. There's also details of that inside the paper, but we'll get to unpack more of that in a bit. There's also a bite from the CJ where it says that the president's disregard of court orders does not bode well for our constitutional democracy, and it's potentially a recipe for anarchy. Beside the court orders, I have challenged the executive to table before the JSC the alleged information of lack of integrity it has on some of the nominees. So let's just go inside the paper and see how that story has been written this morning. The header reads, Furious Maraga takes battle to Uhuru doorsteps. And this is what he says, that you are violating the constitution, encouraging disregard for the rule of law by disobeying court orders and frustrating fair administration of justice. This was the CJ's message to President Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday when he was addressing the press. And so the tiff between the 2 constitutional office holders continues to escalate. That is between the 2 offices, the CJ's office and the president's office. There's also another interesting caption in regards to the same, where it says that bad blood between president CJ traced to nullification of 2017 elections. And so it says that the relationship between President Uhuru Kenyatta and CJ Maraga has not been rosy. They have had on and off tough wars, with the CJ accusing the executive of interfering with the independence of the judiciary. And the 2 have fought on many fronts. So from the presidential election petition at the Supreme Court, which prompted the declaration by the president where he said, we will revisit. Could that be the case?
Good question there, Doreen. We can also see that captured very ably in various daily or other daily issues of the newspaper. We have quite different headlines there. If I can just look at what the Star has on its front page, is that Uhuru was to pick judges next week before CJ's attack. Quoted there is David Maraga. Your Excellency, you know I have respect and for you as our president, and I've told you that. You also know that I have for a long time unsuccessfully sought an appointment to discuss this issue with you, leaving me with no option but to raise the matter through this public statement. That is what the CJ said yesterday. Story has been ably captured there from the front page. Coming to just a detailed report inside here on the Star, and just to read an excerpt there. Now revelations come in is that Uhuru was about to pick judges before the CJ attack. Now listed there is a list of the 41 judges who are waiting, assent from the president. And just to read a comment by an expert that is Zamba Kitonga. We've also had him here on our show. He says that delayed appointments are bad for the justice system. This particular story also has been captured by the Daily Nation this morning. And the question on this one says, on whose side are you, CJ Maraga? Ask Uhuru. Now, this is a time where Uhuru is asking this question. Our Chief Justice accuses President Kenyatta of disobeying court orders and going against the Constitution by failing to appoint 41 judges. Now, that is captured, rather details coming in through. And quoted there is also the CJ again saying, Justice David Maraga said the president and his officers' disregard for court orders was demonstrated in the recent evictions in Kariobangi and failure to pay victims of accidents caused by government vehicles. I want to draw attention to the cartoon this morning. Quite an interesting caricature of sorts for you, to determine and to interpret as you may. That is what we have on the cartoon there this morning. The executive, the judiciary, the legislature. We've been seeing what has been happening with the legislature, just the president whipping his supporters there, and candidates under Jubilee, so that they toe the line. See that? There we see a seemingly caricature of the CJ Maraga there just, kicking back instead of allowing the axe to calm down. Is that he's putting up a fight. So you interpret the caricature as you may. How about we get now a detailed report from our reporter Edward Kabasa, who filed that particular report after that infamous speech by CJ David, Justice Maraga.
The President of the Supreme Court says he is not aware that some of the judicial appointees had integrity queries that could have stalled their appointment. Maraga says his efforts to seek dialogue with the head of state has failed, leaving him with no option but to resort to going public about his frustrations.
The laws of this country include valid court orders. It therefore behoves you to appoint the 41 judges recommended for appointment by the JSC as ordered by the court without any further delay.
In 2019, the Judicial Service Commission forwarded the names of 41 judicial nominees for appointment as judges, but the president declined to approve the appointment, citing integrity issues against some nominees.
Some of the individuals the executive claims to have adverse information against are serving judges. If the executive's allegations are true, these persons should not then be serving as judges.
The Chief Justice says due to the shortage of judges, Kenyans are being denied justice, as the earliest hearing of cases lodged in 2020 will be in 2022.
The numbers of cases pending before our courts and the number of judges we have in our superior courts make for a grim reality for those of you who will be filing cases before our courts, especially in Nairobi in the coming days.
The Chief Justice said the tendencies by the executive to disobey court orders was setting bad precedents, even as he called on the head of state to direct the Attorney General to take stock of all outstanding court decrees against the government and honor them. Chief Justice David Maraga says the government should be in the forefront in upholding the rule of law. Maraga argues that the government cannot demand of its citizens the obedience of the law. It is itself disobeying with abandon. For Channel 1 News, I am Edward Kabasa.
Now, in other news, let's head over to politics, where we have the ouster of Moses Wetangula, that is Ford Kenya party leader. Wetangula has less than a week to save his post. If the intention of his removal from the helm of Ford Kenya is not opposed in writing, he will have to be ousted. Now, the embattled Bungoma senator, Moses Wetangula, has less than 7 days to save himself from ouster as the Ford Kenya party leader. Now, remember, this is after there was the registrar of political parties, Anne Nderitu, yesterday gazetted the intention of his removal from the annex of the party. There is a move that, if unopposed, will hand over the leadership of Wetangula's political nemesis. Now, the registrar of political parties, that is Anne Nderitu, reviewed the submissions presented by the Secretary General Eseli Simiyu, faction against the relevant laws, including the Political Parties Act, for Kenya Constitution and records of the party in their possession. Now, Ford Kenya's National Executive Council on May 31st dethroned Wetangula's for failure to provide inspiring leadership, causing disunity in the party and more impropriety in last year's Dubai gold scandal saga. He held a meeting yesterday with political parties registrar. Wetangula has less than a week to save his post.
Keeping up with Ford Kenya party politics, pictured in there, the Bungoma senator image there of Moses Wetangula. Registrar Gazette's plan to dethrone Wetangula, where it says that the registrar of political parties has notified the public of intended changes in the leadership of Ford Kenya party, putting into jeopardy Senator Wetangula's position. So yesterday, Wetangula and 5 MPs spent the better part of that day at the registrar's and Nderitu's office, just trying to verify with her a file which Kandunyi MP Wafula Wamunyinyi and his Tongaren counterpart, that is Eseli Simiyu, they presented this last Friday. So Wafula and Eseli last week, they staged a coup that sought to kick out Wetangula as party leader and deposited documents to the registrar seeking ratification of those changes. Now, in these changes, this is how the changes will probably look like. Wamunyinyi is to take over from Wetangula as party leader. Will he actually be able to do that? Will Wetangula save himself? Let's see.
Now, still keeping up with Wetangula's kind of woes, is that we have a header here during that says, Weta faces acts as Ford Kenya Tamil worsens. Quoted there is Wamunyinyi faction that convinces registrar of party leaders ouster. Now, quoted there is that we have demonstrated that the list of the called NEC members, the majority of them were fake. The registrar is a custodian of our NEC register. We believe that we have no doubt that we are legitimately in office. So many troubles there for Senator, the Bungoma senator. And will he survive the axe? Ben Njoe just puts that into perspective.
Bungoma Senator Moses Wetangula's survival as the leader of Ford Kenya hangs in the balance after a Gazette notice concerning the intended change was issued on Monday, giving a 7-day notice showing intent of replacing him. In the Gazette notice, the registrar of political parties gave a green light to members of the public with written submissions concerning the intended change by the political party to do so within 7 days and deposit them with the registrar of political parties. He also gave notice for the replacement of the National Organizing Secretary, Chris Maundu, with Josephine Maungu. Wetangula was dethroned after a party meeting convened by Wamunyinyi last week, who accused him of failing to steer the party. However, Wetangula dismissed the purported meeting by the party's National Executive Committee, claiming he can only be removed by party elections. Elsewhere, Mumias East MP Benjamin Washiali and ANC party chairman Kevin Lunani want the government to take action on leaders who flout the government directives aimed at averting the spread of the coronavirus. Speaking in Mumias, the leaders urged the state to prosecute the leaders holding political meetings in the wake of coronavirus pandemic. Lunani has also noted that ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi as the bona fide leader of Western Kenya, rubbishing the meeting held recently by KOTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli.
Ukweli wa mambo ni kwamba huyo ndio mshikiliaji yeye aliyepewa ngao mbele ya watu zaidi ya 1 milioni ndani ya Buhungu, kila mtu akishuhudia. na ndipo tunasema yeye bado ni msemaji, yeye bado ni mnenaji, yeye ndiye yako kichwa mbele katika mkoa wa Magharibi.
On the front page of the Standard newspaper, faces that speeded up divorce. That is on the front page of the Standard. The free fall. The Jubilee marriage was already on the rocks, but the tongues, acts, and omissions of these men and women tipped the scales for the Uhuru dream. Faces that speeded up divorce. So let's take a look at this story and find out. Here we have men and women who sank dynamic duos bromance, from Murade to Murkomen to Ngunjiri Wambugu to Kimani Ngunjiri. These are the people that catalyzed the fallout. Now, a band of less than 10 men and women are the stars of the messy and noisy divorce between President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto. And as you saw right there on the front page, there were so many faces, different faces, one towards the left, one towards the right. And on this, you have images of David Murade towards the top left. Top right, you have Francis Atwoli. Bottom left, you have Kipchumba Murkomen. Bottom right, you have Alice Ohome. Now, with the historical beefs, Raila Odinga having sacked Honorable Ruto from the Grand Coalition Cabinet and Ruto leaving ODM in 2010, it was inevitable that they would be extended into a handshake politics. For years, pair put on brave faces as relationship hung on the cliff until these men and women happened. Men and women who sank dynamic duos bromance. Get read more about that. But now moving on to other stories in politics still. Let's head over to what's happening in Parliament with the Majority Leader, Honorable Aden Duale. The fate of Duale and Senators quarterly in Uhuru's hands. President Uhuru Kenyatta was last evening holding the last card of the fate of the Leader of Majority in the National Assembly, Honorable Aden Duale, and 6 nominated senators who absconded a Jubilee Party meeting at State House several weeks ago. Yesterday, a meeting to discuss Duale's fate aborted with revelations the president was taking over his removal process, which he went to take through the formal party structure. Fate of Duale and senators quarterly in Uhuru hands.
Now, keeping up with matters politics, before I look up the story concerning Duale, let's just start with politics at the ANC party, where Mudavadi calls for consensus on review of the law. Now, the Amani National Congress Party leader, Musalia Mudavadi, has now called on the government to build wide and all-inclusive consensus over amendment of the Constitution for a successful referendum outcome. So he says the country should draw from the experiences of the failed referendum in 2005 and the 2010 referendum, saying the latter achieved wide acceptance with a 67% approval rate because, unlike the former one, the political elite, citizens, civil society, religious community, and other stakeholders talked to each other as opposed to talking at each other. So the ANC party leader is calling for the government to be inclusive even as talks concerning referendum gear up. Aside from that, coming now to Duale, where it says that Duale safe as MPs meeting to discuss his ouster has been moved, and the fate of the embattled National Assembly leader of Majority, Aden Duale, is back in the hands of President Uhuru Kenyatta after the latter was handed a list of 126 Jubilee coalition MPs who want him sacked. So the new development came even as meeting scheduled at Jubilee Party headquarters yesterday to discuss a petition by Kieni MP Kanini Kega seeking Duale's removal was called off. So it looks like a reprieve for the National Assembly Majority Leader.
It's not a reprieve yet, according to the headline that we have here on the Daily Nation, is that Duale is a dead man walking. A petition signed by 126 members of parliament seeking the removal top Ruto ally Aden Duale from the position of leader of majority in the National Assembly now hangs around his neck. His fate is now in the hands of Jubilee Party leader President Uhuru Kenyatta. Now there is that Raphael Tuju confirmed yesterday that his office and as well as the office of the party leader have received the petition by the legislators and would make a communication to that effect. The petition, Mr. Tuju said, had been made, and it's important that the party looks at it and responds either by accepting it or lobbying members to change their minds. Quoted there is Kapsaret MP Oscar Sudi. Duale has always fought for the government's agenda in the National Assembly, and I wonder why the president is championing for his removal through the back door. Still keeping up with politics is that the coronation that we saw happen last week of Deputy President William Ruto as a supposed leader or political kingpin of the vote-rich Rift Valley has split elders in the middle. Quoted there is Moyot Council of Elders Chairman John Say alluded that the handing over of former President Daniel Moi's Fimbo ya Nyayo to his son Gideon Moi did not mean that he was taking over as a Kalenjin leader. He disclosed that the leadership mantle, which was given to Mzee Moi by the elders, was not returned to the Kalenjin Council of Elders to anoint the next leader. People have been misunderstanding the perspective of these rungus, like what Senator Moi was given was a family baton, not that of the community. The one which was given to Mzee Moi was supposed to have been returned when he completed his term, but due to the protocols which cropped up, everything was delayed. That is quoted there is John Say, who is a Moyot Council of Elders. Political dynamics there continue changing. Over to you, Ram.
All right, now let's take a look at COVID-19 right here in the country, where there are concerns as only 3,400 beds available for corona patients. The President Kenyatta said the healthcare system must be prepared sufficiently to take on a surge in infections. Now, there are only 3,407 beds set aside to care for COVID-19 patients nationally. The National Coordination Center for Isolation and Quarantine Centers say 50 health facilities have been identified across the country to accommodate patients diagnosed with the coronavirus and need the hospitalization. Now, remember, yesterday we had updates on the about COVID-19 yesterday. So far, 50 hospitals for COVID-19 patients exist. We have 22. That is the number of counties that have at least one ICU unit. We have 4,956. That is the hand washing facilities have established in informal settlement. Yet we have the mental health practitioners trained on COVID-19 and psychological first aid across the country, standing at 483. Now, these numbers do not stand adequate when it comes to handling this COVID-19 pandemic. The shortage in medical care facilities has prompted the ministry to look for home-based care. Concerns as only 3,400 beds available for coronavirus patients.
Right, and keeping up with matters coronavirus here in the country, looking at the numbers as well, country records highest recoveries as 97 are discharged, where it was a mixture of good and bad news yesterday, as the country recorded the highest number of recoveries in a span of 24 hours, while the number of COVID cases inched closer to 3,000. This is after 95 more people tested positive. However, in a daily brief that is normally given daily, the Health CAS, Rashid Aman, said that a record of 97 patients had been discharged, bringing the total number of recoveries to 849 so far. On the flip side, though, there was one more death that was recorded after a patient in Nairobi succumbed to respiratory illnesses. The numbers have also been well spelled out still on the same paper, where as of now we stand at 98,439 total tested and 849 recovered, with 85 deaths, and so far we are at 2,862 cases, and this is after 95 new people tested positive in the last 24 hours. Also, we have the map of Kenya, and in the map we have the cases distributed in different parts of the counties, just showing which county has the highest number of confirmed cases so far and which one has the least number of confirmed cases.
Now, still keeping up with cases of COVID and focusing on frontline workers, is that the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Pharmacists and Dentists Union now want health workers employed to handle the surge of COVID-19 confirmed cases at the community level. Now, the union claims that the health sector has a shortage of more than 600 doctors, 1,000 nurses, 360 clinical officers, and 572 lab personnel. Irene Mchuma Odima has those details.
The surge on coronavirus confirmed cases is now shifting focus on how the country is prepared to handle the infections at the community level. So far, 84 health workers across the country are among patients suffering from COVID-19.
Nairobi has 31, Mombasa 41, Kiambu so far 4, and the counties of Kitui, Machakos, Laikipia, and Kajiado have reported 1 each as we speak.
The Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union Secretary General Dr. Chibanzi Mwachonda says 60% of the infections among medics are workplace related. Majority of the health workers are said to have contracted coronavirus at quarantine centers and hospitals after coming into contact with infected patients. The union says for the country to optimally combat the diseases, it will require more soldiers on the ground, and as a matter of urgency, additional healthcare personnel must be employed.
We have the projections that each 300-bed facility will require in terms of human resources for health. 636 doctors, 1,000 nurses, 360 clinical officers, 572 laboratory personnel, among other personnel.
There's already a 5 billion conditional grant that has already gone to the counties. The question is, what have they done with that money? If they put priority, yes, they have the ability and the capability to put up a 300 isolation bed facility.
KMPDU for the wants county governments to implement CBA Article 6 on health insurance for public servants towards affordable and quality health insurance. Irene Mchuma Odim, Channel 1.
Let's head over to the education sector, where we have 3 universities fault agency for wrong details on courses. They have denied early reports that some of their courses received no applications from 2019 KCSE candidates. I'm sure some of you have seen these reports, especially on social media, in regards to the placements that have been there to the courses by the KCSE candidates of 2019. Well, 3 universities have faulted the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Services, that is the KUCCPS, for giving inaccurate information on their degree courses. Now, the agency's report for the 2020-2021 academic calendar for the 2019 KCSE candidates released on Tuesday last week showed that 72 degree courses did not get any student admitted to pursue them. 16 of the 72 courses had no applicant. KUCCPS didn't place students in any of the 56 remaining courses. Now, placement body says it may have erred in giving out details of students' application for courses. We have the degree programs with no applications given there on that table. Maseno and Meru said they received applications in Bachelors of Science in Economics and Statistics with IT and Bachelors of Education Technology in Civil Engineering, respectively. But now so many universities complaining. Now the courses are that are there, according to Maseno University's Director of Communication, Dr. Owen Makonyango, said it's baffled the university that the erroneous information is from KUCCPS. 3 universities fault agency for wrong details on courses.
And sticking with matters education, coming to the private school teachers, where private school teachers seek state funding now. And so hundreds of private school teachers in Nakuru County have called on the national and county government to list them amongst the vulnerable groups. The teachers under the umbrella of Nakuru County Board of Management and Private School Association said the closure of schools